What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 40 of the Overview. I'm ChanManV, and this is the first episode of 2017. I got Fishstix here, got Jason here, back from, I guess, all your crazy New Year's partying, if you guys were able to get out there and party. Is that what you guys were doing? Germany wild? Yep.
Yeah, code's pretty crazy, actually, with New Year's.
Yeah,
like literally
seriously.
everyone buys fireworks and you go outside, you light them all when New Year's ticks over. And I swear, like for an hour straight, I saw fireworks in the sky the entire time. It was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. How about you, Ben?
And
Hopefully
it's in the
Cologne was
city
a little
too, with
bit
bottle
safer
rockets.
this year.
Yeah, that's a whole controversy
Yeah.
where the police chief was racially profiling or having his cadets or his officers racially profiled, but there was no incidents. But yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic.
Germany, yeah, but
That's
Germany and racially profiling people has a bad history, so we don't need to talk too much about that.
Yeah.
I could turn this into
Sorry,
Overwatch
I don't even. I
politics.
probably shouldn't have even brought that up. That's a whole political can of worms. But anyway.
Yeah, Twitch is anything now, man. We can talk about politics on the Overview if we want, but I guess let's avoid that unless it has something to do with Omnics.
I think the big important thing though is forget New Year's. Look where I am. I'm not at the
Yes,
office. I'm
he's at
fucking home because I have internet.
It's
How many
amazing.
months? How many months did that take? for you to get
Ever since I
internet?
moved in, so August.
August.
Oof.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy. But you've been gone for like 60% of that. You've been
However,
Okay.
I wasn't able to get internet until I just got it now. Like it wasn't like a date before I could have gotten it. It's now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, 2017 means we've got a connected Jason at home. That's kind of nice. That's definitely nice, at least for the show. More convenient for you instead of. I know you were hanging around the studios like for hours and hours to do the show before, which not fun. Not fun.
12-hour days at work is great.
Ben, how are the mountains, man? You've been skiing and snowboarding, right?
Yeah, I got a chance to hit the slopes. But 2 days after we left the mountains, it has now dumped 2 feet of snow. Basically, like it actually wasn't that great, even though it's rained a lot in Northern California. It really wasn't that great in Tahoe. But people who are going like next week are probably gonna have an
Powder and
amazing
stuff.
time
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it has just been dumping, which is great as a Californian because we have been in a serious drought for a really long time. But last year, El Nino, it actually rained. This year, it's raining even more than El Nino last year. So, crossing my fingers.
Good.
Things are going well so far.
That's great, man. Last thing we need is like to have to control how many times you gotta flush the toilet,
Yeah.
and things like that. It's crazy. Yeah, New Year's over
Sad but
here,
true.
it's pretty quiet actually this year. We usually have this party that we have every single year, and this is the first year in like I don't know how many years that they didn't have it. So we were just like, what do we do? What do we do? So we just hung out, and actually me and my son played Overwatch a ton on New Year's Eve.
Solid.
Yeah, definitely solid. So why don't we go into just, I guess, what we've been doing, just Overwatch-wise. Jason tweeted a video of his.
Yeah.
That was
That,
you. That was you playing
that was me, yeah.
Reinhardt? Okay, I wasn't sure.
You don't recognize the squeals?
I
coming out of
wasn't
me?
sure about the squeals, but I thought I recognized your voice in the beginning of it, talking. But,
Yeah, that was one of those moments where you're just like, God damn it. When you're playing Reinhardt and you're trying to use your Earth Shatter and a Roadhog ults you, and he just doesn't let you touch the ground. That was fun though. It was good. We won the game.
I gotta show this. I gotta show this.
Oh.
This is funny.
Got my Grandmaster back,
This is
so
funny.
I'm pretty
That's
happy.
pretty great. Wow.
Yeah, let's play
Wait,
the
so
sound
Jason,
too.
you're telling me that we queued and played in NA like several days in a row, and we both deranked like hundreds of SR, and as soon as you go back to Europe, you're Grandmasters again? Like
Yeah.
that's a thing.
Well, I'm on a computer, so that helps. I was on a laptop before. But no, like people don't troll as much in EU as they do in NA. Like, yeah, you occasionally get those people who are just like, you know what, screw you guys, I'm gonna play Hanzo the entire time and do nothing. But NA was the worst. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
want to get too salty about it, but it was literally the worst. Like multiple games in a row of people who just didn't know how to play the hero they were on, and people who just would not care about playing at all. Like a comp, they would just play whatever they want because they didn't care. Because they were just having fun. He hasn't played Genji ever, had 3 games total on it, played Genji because he wanted to have fun in ranked. Thanks, man. Go fuck yourself.
God forbid having fun, but yeah, on comp,
can have
you can go
fun.
play on quick play if you're gonna have fun, right?
Exactly.
You know, the best thing to do. So again, just reiterating for like the fourth time. You know, this season I'm just playing with my son, right? And we were kind of doing this platinum gold thing right now, just in that range. And you know, the hardest thing is to have to like give life lessons or teach life lessons to my son when you've got guys that will play Hanzo and people reply with, "You play Hanzo? I quit. It's your points on the line right now." You know, so it's, and they're just like going back and forth the entire time before we start the game. I'm just like, just don't listen to them, son. Just don't listen to them all. It's not the right way to solve problems.
Like when I was streaming today, I was saying to people, like, I can understand people to play Widowmaker because you're just a really good Widowmaker, or maybe Bastion or something, right? I'm fine with you playing like a weird hero and having like an odd comp, but it's when a hero doesn't work and you don't switch. Like when you're purposely being an asshole, that's when I get pissed off.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyways.
Yeah, so I mean, that's ladder. I mean, I've come to expect it, but it sounds like EU ladder and Korean ladder are a little bit better in terms of that. So a little bit less salt. But talking about the ladder, we have our new map finally available. The update was, or the patch was earlier today. If you guys haven't been on Overwatch, if you log on, you can go ahead and download that. But Oasis is now out and available on the ladder. Haven't gotten a chance to queue it up, just been trying to, but still haven't gotten a chance to run into it. But Ben, we were just talking about it right before.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a totally gorgeous map. I can't wait to actually play some games on it, and I'm just excited to have another King of the Hill map. I really like King of the Hill.
Yep.
It's balanced by necessity. It's symmetrical, entirely balanced. So that's a nice thing about King of the Hill in general. It just dilutes the pool a little bit more, so slight less chance of getting those 2CP assault maps that everyone seems to be kind of salty about these days.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's slight, but I'll take it. And if you think about it, we've got Eichenwald, we've got Ilios since the game came out. We've gotten a couple of maps, we've got a couple of heroes. It seems like Blizzard is basically on basically every other month we're going to get a new map or a new hero or something like that. And that seems like a pretty good cadence to me. I mean, obviously you want as much as you can get, but I'm pretty happy with that cadence of basically every other month getting a big content patch.
And the cool thing is we know what's coming too, because the PTR just sets us up for it. So in some ways, it's not like a huge reveal moment whenever it finally does come out to production, but that I'm totally okay with it not being just this crazy moment now that it's out. Just knowing in advance that they're doing stuff and what they're working on is great. I don't think they made any changes to Oasis while it was on PTR. Like, did you guys hear about anything like that? I don't think they've made any changes to any of the maps. Now that I think about it. Any of the new maps, I don't think they've ever made changes in the PTR.
Eichenwald, they changed the bridge, or no, the payload speed after the first checkpoint.
Oh, the
that
speed.
moves quicker through the second phase.
The bridge.
But I don't think that was from PTR to live. I think that was just from live to a patch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Oasis, hopefully you guys get a chance to play it. Well, I'm sure I'll be able to play it a lot more. All of us will finally get a chance to play it under real circumstances, and we can review it a bit more. But
before we switch off that topic, I'm really curious about is if there's predetermined map pools for tournaments still.
Yeah.
How does that affect the map pool in that one? Are they still going to try to limit to like one King of the Hill? So you have to think about it this way: is that they had one map as like a default tiebreaker map. So it was typically Ilios because they didn't want people to play Ilios or something, or it was Nepal. No, sorry, it was Nepal. It was like the default tiebreaker map. So with having a fourth King of the Hill map, fourth control map in this one, does this mean you're potentially going to get like two controls in a map pool for a match if they continue to go that route?
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows how map picking is going to be.
True.
Everyone's just like every single tournament's just different and changing.
Well, I think the map pool
will drama and all that.
Yeah, I think the map pool will be an interesting discussion with what we're about to talk, which I didn't really cover the general synopsis of what we were doing today. So, of course, we're doing our week in Overwatch right now. We're going to talk about some esport news with Lunatic Hai, adding a few players to the roster, but that opens up a big discussion point about just having more than 6 players on your roster and what that really means. I think this whole map pool and what's available is somewhat related to that discussion too. So we can talk some more about that then. Also, we've got some news about NGE, the event that's going to be happening or is happening right now, as well as our hopes for 2017. What we're just hoping that's going to happen in the Overwatch community and competitive Overwatch. Lastly, Q&A, of course. Go ahead and tweet those to myself at ChanManV, and we'll probably take a few more questions than we normally take. Okay, so going back to the map. Anything else, guys, for you just in terms of playing Overwatch? The holidays, I believe, end today at the Winter Wonderland, or did it just end with a patch? I didn't actually notice if it did. I know while I was getting the patch.
So I still got the splash screen with the Winter Wonderland.
Okay, so it's still going on.
So it seems like it's still going on.
Yeah.
I thought it was ending last night. So
me
I
too.
bought like 15 loot boxes, or like 17. I don't even know how many loot boxes I bought last night. So I could make sure to get everything I needed to get. Yes, I bought loot boxes because I felt passionately about skins for the first time. Something weird is happening, man.
Which one was the one? Which one was the one that motivated you?
I wanted the Winston Yeti.
Oh,
that's
okay.
good.
I don't have
that's
that
worth
one.
it.
But because I opened like 16 loot boxes, I got like the May emote. Like I got all these great skins and emotes that I didn't even know I wanted. So something has changed in my DNA. I finally care about cosmetics. I don't know.
Well, this is what's interesting about it, right? Is that I've bought in 50 cases every patch that comes out for it.
Nice.
Good lord.
But what about esport cases, right? Like in Counter-Strike, where it can contribute to a prize pool of a tournament or the prize pool of a league.
My fingers on
like
this
the
one.
Overwatch League. Maybe if you buy those, like the compendium, you buy it, then it eventually works towards something for the league or for the tournaments, or maybe in general, like any money contributed gets trickled into third-party events as well. Like that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool to have some gambling. I mean, never mind. But
Chris.
No, it would definitely be great to have the something equivalent to the compendium and that ability. What would you have for these cases if you were just like guns and that sort of thing? Different guns for the characters, or
honestly, I don't even care what it is.
Team logo items.
Sure, like team logo is cool. Like
right.
It gives pride and to the teams, and maybe we can do some revenue share with the teams. But it doesn't even matter to me what is put in this esports case, or if it's any different than a normal loot box at all. I mean, if you look at other games like Smite, like even games like Killer Instinct, it was just a specific skin for a specific character, had nothing to do with like teams or players or whatever. It just raised money for a prize pool, and it works every time. So whatever the case is, give us esports cases,
That's
please.
Right. That's right. Oh, one last thing too. There's it's the last day for the Nexus challenge. So if you want the Genji skin, the demon skin, go and finish that Heroes of the Storm challenge. I still have one game to play. I need to definitely do that tonight, or else I'll be screwed. I'll be left without that awesome skin. It's definitely one of the best Genji ones in my opinion. Okay, well, why don't we move into some of the news, some of the esport news, which the big one is the Lunatic Hai adding 2 more players. Zunba, famous from a World Cup, making that amazing play. Actually, that was the play that we talked about last week. At least that was my play of the year, was the awesome play he made in Eichenwald during the World Cup. Also, Who Are You is another player who's definitely less known. What? What are you laughing about?
I'm just glad you said that, because I forgot it's pronounced like that. I was going to say something else.
Right. Oh God, you're so bad. It is spelled in a very. Actually, it's not spelled. It's just Who and then the letter R and the letter U. But anyways, he's a lot less known. So actually, I don't know much about Who Are You, but did look at the profile when they announced, just the addition and some of the things that he's been doing. Sounds like a great player too. But one thing to note, or one thing to point out, is that they're not replacing anybody on Lunatic Hai. They're
right. That's the thing, right?
That's the biggest thing.
Tajan has gotten so much hate on the team from the community. He's gotten pressured from the organization. It's actually his whole team got pressured from the organization to kick him off the team, but instead they wanted to keep him. But adding 2 new people onto the roster, there's no other Roadhog player on the team except him, but his Genji was not to the level of assuming Who Are You is going to be. Like, we saw him play against Manitin at IM Gyeonggi, and he got hooked every single time.
Yeah.
So
That
what do
was-
you do in that situation? Like, is this like a slow transition of him out of the team, maybe? Like, would you pick someone up? Like, I guess that's a follow-up question. If you know someone's really good on Genji traits, like you have a Shadowburn but he only plays Genji and doesn't try to play anything else, do you pick up that player on your team and then try to sub him into matches, or do you try to make him learn other heroes? Like, I don't know. That's really odd for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very unique in esports. You don't see this very often
Right.
where a team, I mean, you don't see this in CSGO. You don't, I mean, CSGO is a little bit different, obviously, but you don't see this in League or Dota, where a team, you got a 6-man roster. Now Lunatic Hai has 8 people on the team. And I guess the notion here is that some people have specific specialties with some heroes. Zunba, obviously, we know him as an incredible Zarya player. Is he primarily Zarya? Is he a Zarya main that like only plays Zarya and he just specializes in Zarya? If so, he's probably a step above like any other Zarya player that bounces between other tanks, plays off tank, maybe some D.Va, whatever. But then this begs like a ton of different questions. First of all, in a best of 5, do you swap players in and out depending on the map? Is that something you can do? Like, I can only imagine that would just be a logistical nightmare for tournaments. Swapping someone in and out, having to change all the settings, all their equipment, whatever, is a big pain. So is that something tournaments will even allow? Is that something teams would even want to do if they had the opportunity to do so? And if Korea's doing it now, you got to imagine the rest of the world is watching. Korea's usually ahead of the game when it comes to not just the game itself, but the meta game of how to practice right, how to build the proper team. So if let's say Apex, OGN, they do allow these teams to swap players in and out in the course of a best of 5, will other tournaments follow suit? Then all of a sudden, teams that only have 6 people on their roster are potentially at a disadvantage. And Jason, I think you were touching on it for a second there. There's a lot of teams that have like one particular disadvantage. Fnatic comes to mind as a team that doesn't have someone that plays projectile, Pharah, Genji at like the ultra sickest, highest level. They have a lot of hit scan heroes. So could they like make a roster move and try to steal Shadowburn? Just so they have a pocket Genji. This opens up a lot of interesting.
It's not even worth it though. Like
maybe
to
not.
pick
I don't
up
know.
a Genji only player, like that player gets nothing
yeah.
except money being on the team, and the team is just draining resources. And that player doesn't become really famous unless that hero's played in the meta at the time.
Well, I think it's the economic aspect of it for the team or the organization. I think is probably the biggest reason as to why we haven't seen it in esports. You have to pay another person, whatever that amount is, the salary for each of those players, and like you said, maybe only playing half the time. That's the negative for sure, no question. Obviously,
and as that person, like as an organization, you can't say to that player, "Oh, we're only going to pay you half because you're not really active on the team."
Right.
When that player's like, "All right, well, screw you guys, I'm going to join another team, get paid full salary, and play the entire time."
Right. You can't be paid per match. That's
right.
that sort of model. But I have to say, from the other standpoint, it's much easier to build a complete roster or at least a complete lineup, depending on the metagame or even just the event, if you do have more players. Kind of like what Ben was alluding to there. If you could have 7, 8 players, you probably could put the optimal lineup for that particular meta, for that particular map, at more consistently than having to pick like these very flexible players. There's not very many of them. And we talked about Misfits, right? Why they're so special. They have like a roster full of guys that can play tons of different characters. Therefore, it leads to probable consistency in success when metas change. So I think this is super intriguing. I'm actually thinking that this will be where things start to head, and Korea leading the way with it. I mean, we've seen Korea be the first to have multiple teams for an organization, right? Like we see Red and Blue, we see Frost and Blaze, we see and I think even with LW, right, last week or the week
Roaster
before,
and Bullets.
Yeah, we saw Blue and Red kind of combine, and it was just under the Red. It was basically just the Red brand that they were using, but it was a combination of both teams already. So I see this being just the beginning of it.
Well, I mean, people are pointing out in chat in League, they already do this. Like even during Worlds, like Korean teams will swap players depending on like what they want to run for that game and such. And we even saw it at APAC when Uber and I were there with Vici Gaming, where XBG, he's mostly like a Roadhog player. At the time, Roadhog wasn't played too much.
Mm-hmm.
And he would play support for the team because they would want him to be able to flex over to Roadhog if they needed it to make their comp work. And they had Huey1, or I'm sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, who actually was their main professional support player, but they only used him on King of the Hill. So like they would actually sub people in between maps. And there was even another team, I can't think off the top of my head, I think it was IG Fire, involving a McCree player where they didn't have a McCree player on the team necessarily, or in the main core, they had a sub would come in and play McCree for them whenever they needed a McCree player for a map.
How does that work actually in League? Are there restrictions on how many times you can swap in a best of 5? Can you do it between every map?
Honestly, couldn't tell you if there's restrictions. I just know they can do it between maps.
Yeah, I don't see.
And then
why
I guess
not.
I guess Overwatch has to find their own way. Can you do it between halves, or are you locked with the roster you run on that map? Are you locked with the roster once you start the series that you can't actually change anyone? Because like, say a team's really susceptible to a Genji. Like you can really want a Genji player well. All right, let's put Shadowbeard in on our team for this match, for this roster, for this lock, and then try to beat him with that. Isn't that what happens in professional sports? You have to submit your roster ahead of time of who's actually going to be starting and such for your team. Like in baseball, they do that. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, you do when you start, but obviously they can sub at any point. And there's a possible limitation to how many times you can sub, like in soccer and even in baseball. Well, actually, baseball is probably just limited to the number of people. Because once you've subbed in, they can't play again. That's another thing we can talk about too, right? Like it could be this restriction of it. Yeah, once he's subbed out, he's done. Like you can't play him again, and that'd be kind of neat. I think the question is, if we do this, do we start, like, where do we start? In terms of what you're talking about right now, do we start with a more just very flexible version of it? So no, they as long as they set their lineups before each game, it's cool. That being obviously the most aggressive way of doing it. Actually, the most aggressive way to doing it would be during games. You have guys literally swap chairs and shit. That would be hilarious, dude. But I'm throwing that out first off. But even just for game to game, I think that would be the most aggressive. Do you think that's the best way to start it, or should we do something where it's just like match to match?
I'm actually in favor of doing it game to game. I think it would add an interesting layer
like
on
series
top of
to
everything.
Series? Just to clarify.
No,
game to game.
Within
like
a best
game
of
1
5.
to game 2, game 3, yeah.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, map to map, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the biggest problem is the tournament organization standpoint of getting people situated. Do you have to have an extra PC? But if that's solvable, I think it adds an interesting layer of metagame. I like it. I'd like to see this take, be part of the other. I guess the other issue is for team owners. You have to have 1 or 2 more people on your roster salaried. Otherwise, you're not going to be as strong of a team. And that could be difficult for some. But otherwise, I like it a lot.
So my question is, who would you rate higher? A team that flexes in someone like this, that like changes players depending on map they're on or something, or matchup, or a team that can still play with the same 6? Like, in your guys' minds, who's the better team in that situation? Because one team has to rely on swapping players, where their team is confident enough to win with the 6 they have. Well, or are they? Can you compare skill between the two like that?
Obviously, the team with less players is more efficient from cost, and even from the standpoint of strategic standpoint. When it's the same 6 players, you don't know what they're going to be playing. Where if you sub in this guy, they're going with Genji. Like we should play whatever comp that we think counters that the best. If you do have a specialist come into your lineup, it tells you it's a bit of a tell for your opponent.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're a more flexible team, you're going to be better. Yeah. But hard to know without seeing it in practice.
It's hard to accomplish too. Like, right now it's hard to have a team that's just full of players that are accomplished in so many characters. And there's going to be more heroes. There's going to be more heroes coming out in the future and more meta, different meta. And it's just a hard problem to chase. More players will continue to get better and better at it. But if you want to have success like right now, I think it's going to be difficult. Like the same teams are going to have a difficult problem, and certain players will be worth a lot more right now. So maybe those players don't want it to happen, like the flexible players. But generally speaking, I think it's hard to accomplish.
And you also have to worry about like synergy within the team. Like there's only so many hours in a day and so many hours you can practice in a day. Like, are you going to have, I mean, if you're paid professionally, obviously it's not a big deal, but like you have to have those 8 people waiting around the entire day with the scrims. So you have the other 2 who aren't in the scrim analyzing the games, which is a big plus. But at the same time, to get that level of synergy between all 8 players, I'm assuming you're going to have like a core of 4 and like 2 who could potentially swap out. But to have like the synergy be the same with both squads is still a little bit rough. Like, that's a tough ask. Obviously that, you know, pro teams will be able to do that, but that's so much extra work to do to make this kind of work for your team, like to have subs.
It's something that will separate pro teams from amateur teams. You know, like what we have right now is still a pretty big meld between the two right now. You know, I think we still have groups of players that are generally still more from the mindset of an amateurish type of just viewpoint and how they approach just how they're practicing in games and everything, and it's still good enough. Like, some of the players are just so good that it's able to translate into what the pro scene is right now. But as we get more and more serious, as we get closer to the league, I think you will see that separation, and this type of thing will just put those teams that do have these multiple players and able to put their most efficient lineup in every single event. It'll separate them from everybody else that can't do that. And that'll be good. That just means that the play is going to be even better, right? The quality is going to be even better than what we see.
Yeah, and anyway, it's an interesting discussion point. We'll see how it shakes out for Lunatic Hai, who now has these 8 players. So we'll get an opportunity to see how this shakes out really soon. Whatever the next tournament is in Korea.
I guess maybe one last point about it. I think just one last point, just because I think
I could keep really talking about this for like half an hour at least.
Yeah, we could.
It's just really interesting.
From a production standpoint, I think it's cool. Like, even from a, just a pundit standpoint or just us, it's great to be able to talk to people who are the best in the world at certain character and not have to like, oh, but you know what, when like Tails, Fair's not in the meta, so he's just not as good when Fair's not in the meta. But when Fair's in the meta, he's like amazing. When we're talking about Tailspin or whoever, and I hate having to do that. It sucks when like some of these players aren't able to still have that same type of prestige or whatnot whenever the game changes to a different state. And it's still going to happen to a degree, but at least that person will still retain value, like heavy, like lots of specialty value for teams from the standpoint of how much they can get paid, salary wise or that sort of thing.
So like even relating to that, like, would you rate a person who can, okay, so like for instance, like to Vic, right? Let's say he might not have a better Genji, just for an example, might not have a better Genji than Shadowburn, who in this situation is only playing Genji, but he plays so many more heroes better. He plays a wider range of heroes to a better level than he does. Would that mean Tavik is a better player? Like, obviously, like I said, it depends on the meta, right? But in a game when maybe you need someone to switch something weird to make an attack work, then wouldn't a flex player like Tavik be more valuable than a player who only plays like 1 or 2 heroes? Like,
yeah, he still would be.
It depends on how you judge it, I guess.
There's still a category for just most well-rounded player, because in Overwatch, we can swap heroes within a game. So in that state, if somebody does make a change or his team does make a swap, Tavik's going to be incredibly valuable because he can swap to adjust to it, or he can make that swap to counter whatever the other team's doing. So in the end, there's a special category for these well-rounded characters, or for these well-rounded players too. Okay, well, I mean, sounds like Ben wants to move on, though.
No, I just I don't have too much more to say on the topic personally.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it's a cool concept. Who knows how tournament organizers are going to deal with it? I have no idea. I mean, if you think about traditional sports, every traditional sport, you have a bench. If there's a squad, you have a bench. Obviously, that's different because you have to exert yourself physically. So you swap them in and out because of tiredness. But
that's not true. Even strategic, like we've seen it recently in football, probably in the last 5 years, I'd say. We've seen the spread offense become something a lot more popular in college. This is for all the sports guys. You can just turn off now if you're just a pure gamers. But like the spread offense has become like a big thing in college football, and in some of the teams that win the national championship run a spread offense. Doesn't work quite as well in the NFL, and it's just been something that for a lot of years people have just ruled out because of how gifted the defensive players are. So running quarterbacks and things like that just don't work in the NFL. But we have seen people go to that Wildcat package where you have essentially a runner as your quarterback trying to get short yardage and running that type of strategy in a short yardage situation. And that's become something, and that's created an actual role for these quarterbacks that would never have gotten a job. They'd have to switch to tight end or something like that otherwise during the draft. So we've actually seen somewhat of this happening in football, not just your standard subbing in for the same role because you're just tired, but strategic additions to the roster to make them a little bit more diverse.